I already had the line down from my dad, and it was like, oh no, art is a hobby. I mean, it's fun to do, but it's a hobby. You can't make a living at it. Which is almost true. I'm Mark Dancy, professional artist since 1987. That's the first time somebody paid me money to do a drawing. I would say that I am inspired by like some poetic phrase that some guys put together. A lot of poetry has an image in it. I want to make a picture of it.
He was someone who learned because his father, from what I understand, sat him down and showed him how to draw and to think about drawing, and just was drawing as a little kid. And then when he got into music and started with his first band, his first hardcore band in the early 1980s, became like the graphic meister for that.
I went to Michigan, and again, no art school, no anything, but the Gargoyle was art school, which is this humor magazine where you could do what you wanted. They've got a whole building for student publications there, and all you got to do is show up. When I got done with school at Michigan, I had a degree in psychology, which I intended never to use.
Kind of the concept of making a living off of your art is really kind of, at least in America, is kind of like a post-World War II kind of concept. The idea that you can do this one thing and you can make a living from it in that way.
I'd been in the Gargoyle, but I just wanted to do it. That's what I liked. So I'm going to keep doing this. So we started a magazine called Motor Booty. But then it's like punk rock, like you just do it yourself. You want to have a magazine, start your own magazine. So that was like a place where I could, for sure I'm getting my stuff printed in this magazine. I'm getting the cover because I made it.
Now, Motor Booty was not a straight magazine in the traditional sense. It would do straight things, but it would also do humorous things. It kind of is an encapsulation of I would say two ideas. One is underground comics. So they would take, say, someone's life story and turn it into a 6-page comic, or they would use it to talk about things that were in the pop culture that maybe they weren't really big fans of. So later on in the magazine, you see an introduction to the group Insane Clown Posse, which was originally done for Spin. Spin wanted someone to write about this group that was starting to develop here in Detroit and was starting to get attention. It was a two-man crew of Dancy and Rubin. They went to the show, and then the idea was to create the feature like they would do a feature for Motor Booty.
Then there was the case of Spin magazine writer Mike Rubin and cartoonist Mark Dancy.
They kind of equate them to minstrel shows of the 1930s and saying that, these are white men who are buffooning on like black stereotype and trope.
Now here is the bitter Mark Dancy and the jealous Mike Rubin in a position of power.
There were death threats. I believe they went on the radio and said, if you see these guys out walking around, throw them a beating.
The clowns retaliated by telling their fans to hunt down cartoonist Dancy.
And one of the retorts that I heard he said in the period was, well, I guess I'll just hang out in public libraries. I'm sure their fans won't find me there.
And they paid me. like what? Like somebody's gonna pay me to do this, which I'm gonna do it anyway. I'm gonna draw cartoons anyway, and someone's gonna pay me to do it. That was kind of just a shocking thing. Then, at the same time in 1989, I got in a band. I started a band. That became this huge project.
Big Chief is our little edited feature this week. Big Chief, of course, from Ann Arbor, Michigan.
The major labels all of a sudden are coming around. You can smell somebody who's like coming around, like thinks they can make money off you. And it also became this huge thing of all the graphics that are needed for a band. You need all the record covers, you need all the t-shirts, you need all the stickers.
Our guitar player, Mark, does all the artwork, and we kind of hash out what we want to do. We come up with a concept and we talk about it, and it's kind of his interpretation of that concept. We pretty much put it in his lap because we don't want to dictate what he has to do. But it's, it's just like one more form of expression for us, you know, rather than the songs, you know, there's the artwork too.
Then it's a thing of like, people would see my stuff. My stuff is out there to advertise their band, but people would see my stuff, and then maybe somebody else wants it something, like somebody wants one of them for theirs. And then there was actually jobs, there was actually work would come to me, which I never expected. We played with Soundgarden, and the first time we went to Seattle, and Soundgarden came to the show, and they're like, we want you to do a record cover. And I was like, okay.
About the bad motor finger. Is this a bad motor finger? Is this a bad motor finger? Is this a bad motor finger? Or is this a bad motor finger? This one.
Bad motor finger is like a flip-off finger. So I made like a stylized finger going doot, doot, doot. So I did that, and then we had a record on Sub Pop, traveled around and did all this stuff, and it just kind of, center can't hold. But then I didn't care about rock anymore. I didn't want any more to do with rock. I was just more interested in art and comics. It was more like realizing like there's not so much time. Then I want to try to get better at making better pictures. And that's when Phil Durr was the guitarist in the band, and at some point he brought me a set of oil paints. Oh, I don't even know what to do with these, like what this means, what oil paint means. By this time in the story, when I'm in this age, I realize there's a lot I don't know. Then it's kind of like, okay, there's time to try to get better at this.
He has a psychology degree, but he claims he doesn't use it. I think that really his stuff is filled with it. In the painting series, there's all of these different stories that he pulls from. As a kid who grew up for a brief time in the West in Arizona.
And went to the Birdcage Theater, which was this 24-hour rolling floor show. They've got prostitutes in the booths above working the crowd, 24-hour poker game going in the basement.
I think that is also kind of infused, that there's a humanism in his work.
I really like to put the models at this perspective, like you gotta look up. You're not watching somebody who's not watching you. I want it to be like a connection. It's a mutual hunt. Still, there's a human thing there. Like, even though there's commerce involved in this thing, and there's a thing, like there still has to be a human connection through the eyes, right? They want him to look. When there was Motor Booty, that was like the thing. That was like our entity. And that was, so now I'm without that house for my thing. So I wanted there to be a new one. Illuminato means enlightened, actually. So that is just an idea to have my own company. I'm trying to make up for lost time and lost opportunities to have trained myself better. Making a living out of this was never my plan. It's more like I was getting away with something. It was not a legitimate path, yet I did it. Somehow I'm still here, I made it. It wasn't a plan, but yet it worked.
I think if you were to ask him what his best work is, he would say it's the next thing I do. It's not the thing that I did 5 years, 10 years, 20 years ago. It's the next thing.